Torg Eternity Delphi Council Debriefings, where the storm has a name. We are your hosts, Jay and Leamon, and today we will be getting back into the Vitality Paths from the Pan-Pacifica sourcebook. Before we jump into that, though, we do want to remind you that you can write us at torgdcd@gmail.com. You can send us emails. We will reply. We'll on the next podcast or a future podcast, we will reply to the email, whether that's answering questions or commenting on your comments. We like getting those, reading those, and discussing things about those. So let's go ahead and get into the Vitality Paths. So we ended last time on the path of the hero. And now we are on and this is something that right before we started recording, we were discussing how to pronounce this. And we both kind of were like, the path of Palin or Palin.
Or Palan.
Or Palan. When I read path, and in a sentence kind of, I want to say path of Palin. But then if I just say it by itself, I want to say Palin. So you can do it however you want to. There is no, as far as I know, official way of doing it. I don't remember how I used to call it in original Torg. But we'll just say that it is this path. Starts on page 44. The prereq for this one is you have to have 2 adds in faith and 1 add in persuasion, and you need to be following this is where I want to say Palinism.
I want to say Palinism.
So, okay, so this is an interesting path because there are also some faith perks that deal with it, as well as the path. So it kind of you get a little bit more of just being a person who does vitality stuff. You get a little faith in with it. So the path skill is faith, but you need 2 adds in faith, 1 in persuasion. The faith needs to be part. You need to choosing the Palin. And the number 1, so you're definitely going to get this because you have to have 2 adds in faith, so you're going to get the first 2. The first one is step of consequence. All actions, even minor ones, have consequences. After the priest or ally is hit in combat, spend 2 shock to make the hero's next test against that attacker favored. If the attacker is KO'd before the hero's next action, they regain the shock. So what are your thoughts on step of consequence?
I think this one's really good, although you got to be careful because you can definitely shock yourself out if you're not careful. I take it as the hero, meaning the person who was hit,
right?
Not necessarily the path person, right? So I think this is really good because it lets you give favored to not just yourself, but any of your allies who are getting hit, and B, it's their next test, not their next attack. And so that could be their soak test. That depending on what's going on. So there's a lot of options, and then the refund. It's like you never see that.
Right.
If the thing goes down, you get it back. So that's great. It's like some self-healing right there.
Yes, it does say the next test against that attacker. So
that attacker. So soak wouldn't do it, but it could be like an interaction attack.
Right. It could be something
like
else. It wouldn't necessarily have to be like shooting or stabbing or something.
That's what I was going to say originally, and then I just saw test and my mind went off.
But no, I think this is pretty good. The refund is extremely nice because a lot of them is it seemed to be split. A lot of them requiring it up front, and then you see in the other ones allowing you to see the result first before you add it to it, where this is kind of you do it beforehand, but if it doesn't work out, you get it back anyway.
Or if it works out really well.
Right. So that yeah, if they are get KO'd, then you regain it. So that's kind of nice. Also, with this path and the faith, steer towards becoming pacifists.
Mhm.
The deeper in you get, so this can be I am good in combat by getting these attackers into the way of my friends shooting and stabbing because
Right.
I don't do it. So whether or not you want to like skirt the pacifistic rules of like, oh, I do this little thing, and you get a better action against it. But visually, I can see a lot of movies and TV shows and stuff where you do have like a pacifistic type person dodging and weaving and not getting hit and causing, their foe to somebody else to have a better time against the foe. So I think that is pretty thematic and cool. So the second uh, path is the step of kindness, which is spend 2 shock to make a persuasion test. On a success, heal an ally from one stymied or vulnerable condition. If the priest has helper, the persuasion test is favored. So you spend 2 shock, they lose a stymied or vulnerable condition, and you get to favor it if you have the helper perk. So, what are your thoughts on Step of Kindness?
That one is pretty meh, in my opinion. The big use for it, I think, is you can use it if you've got an ally stuck in melee
Mm-hmm.
and they're very vulnerable. You can take it down a notch so they can actually get away. But aside from that, the fact that it requires an action, it requires a skill check, and it requires shock is just a bit much. Like um, I can't remember what it's called now, but I think it's a prowess perk now. It was originally Electric Samurai, the one that you could just, basically take shock to lose your vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it costs more shock, but it's instant and doesn't require a test. So, but it only affects yourself.
Right.
But that is a great perk, but this is too many limitations in my opinion. But I mean, it's not like you're not gonna take it, like you have it. So it might come up at some point, and when it comes up, you can do it.
Right. Right. So, yeah, I think it's a conditional one, but when it is used, I think whoever it's used on would be very happy to be able to
Yeah.
get get out of the range of allied fire if they were in melee combat or were a ranged person or non melee combatant needing to get out and already being vulnerable so they couldn't. So we'll move on to the third, which is the step of truth. Always speak the truth. The truth can be more surprising than a lie. The priest may use persuasion instead of trick as an interaction attack. On a successful test, spend 1 shock to draw a card. It does not count as an improved action. And I think that last sentence is there to make sure that you don't draw 2 cards by
Yeah.
spending 1 shock. So, what are your thoughts on Step of Truth?
This one's really good. Anytime you can find a way to use a skill that you're already taking, and you do need to have persuasion to
Mm-hmm.
take this path in the first place. So anytime you already have a skill and you can use it to do an interaction attack or do something else, like you can use that skill for something different, kind of like computer empathy, letting you use your faith for computers. Like
Mm-hmm.
any of those kind of things are very good because it lets you basically just no longer have to worry about spending ads in that. Although it is worth noting, and let me just double check the wording here. Yes, it does not help you for your trick defense
Mm-hmm.
at all,
Right.
just the offense. But it is still very good, and that on a successful test, spend 1 shock to draw a card is great. 1 shock for a card, yes, please. And if you have a very stickler rules lawyer, they might point to the sentence that just says, on a successful test, spend a shock. It doesn't say it has to be this. It could be any test, right? It's like, no. so, yeah, just watch for that.
Yes, it does need to be a persuasion.
Mhm.
But yeah, as you said, anytime that you can use one skill in place of another skill, it's nice. Um, you don't have to get ads and lots of things. And then getting cards for a shock, as you said, very good. Just very good. Get you cycling through the deck, getting the good cards, etc. Um, so the fourth part of the path of Palin is the Step of Mercy. Spend 4 shock to roll another bonus for the Vow of Non-Violence perk instead of spending a possibility. So we'll have to go and look at the Non-Violence perk. If the hero has the Pacifist perk, he may also choose to take a wound he can't soak or otherwise heal for 1 act instead of losing his Vow of Non-Violence and Pacifist perks for an act. So on that, the pacifist perk and the vow of nonviolence are you lose those if you do something violent for an act. So this would allow you to take a wound instead of that. But let's go back to the vow of nonviolence because it says you can spend 4 shock instead of a possibility. So that is a faith perk.
Yep. It's on page 20 of the Pan Pacifica book. It's basically you could
Okay.
spend a possibility anytime um, an opponent rolls a bonus for an attack targeting the hero. They could spend a possibility to roll another bonus and force the attacker to take the lower action total. But if the attacker spent any possibilities to boost, the hero must also boost, spending an equal amount.
So this would allow you to spend 4 shock instead of the possibility. So what would your thoughts on the Step of Mercy be?
Well, in addition, with the vow of nonviolence, you do also have a -2 to make any kind of physical attacks against people,
Mm-hmm.
which would include grappling and things like that. And if you make an attack that could cause physical harm, i.e., shock or wounds, against someone who has not made a physical attack against you or an ally or innocent bystander, then you lose the perk for the act, which is what that
The wound.
other clause was about. Note that the nonviolence is not yet hardcore as like pacifist.
Mm-hmm.
You can still slap people around if they deserve it. But so in this case, you could spend 4 shock instead of a possibility, and you could take a wound to not lose the perk, which are both good. But if your opponent spent possibility, that shock can add up pretty quickly. Like if
Mm-hmm.
they boosted, you'd probably have to spend 8 shock,
Shock.
or you could spend a combination. You
A
could spend a
possibility and
possibility
4.
and some shock. Yeah, so it gives you some other options. So I
So
mean, it's good, but I think if you're going on the path of Palin, then you are dedicated to making a pacifist character already. So
right.
this is not doing anything you weren't going to do already.
Right, right. And the pacifist is basically it goes the step further, which you cannot uh, do any type of physical attacks under any circumstances. If you would, then you you lose that you lose that the nonviolence perk for the act with the Step of Mercy would allow you to take a wound instead of losing it. The pacifist does is you can't make physical attacks, but your interaction attacks are favored. So
Yeah,
that's where those two. So yes,
it's
this is
good if you're a
something.
ghost.
Yeah, exactly. A Pan-Pacifica Aurora mixed ghosts.
Anyone can be a ghost.
That would be fun. I had a player who his character died and was brought back as a ghost because he it was a very big switch to go from like a monster hunter to a
I bet, yeah.
ghost to the I'm shooting stuff to make it hurt to I can't do things physically. But the let me get back to it. Step of mercy. Yeah, I would say anytime that you can, instead of spending a possibility, have a choice of doing other things is good. And this step of mercy allows you to be a little unmerciful if you really feel like breaking those nonviolent violence pacts and pacifist pacts, because then you can take a wound instead of losing the benefits of those. So, step five, the step of poverty, with the Path of uh, Palin perk. When the priest is hit in combat, she may spend 2 shock to reduce the number of wounds taken by 1. So it's a 2-to-1 wound. What are your thoughts on that?
That's pretty good. I mean, this is the 5 skill one. So if you're not going for mastery, this is where you max out.
Mm-hmm.
And it's pretty good. It's like a standard soak for 2 shock, although it doesn't do anything to the shock, so you're probably taking at least 4, like you're already taking at least 2 shock, so you're really taking 4 shock. So again, it adds up super quick. And it does note that it has to be from a hit in combat,
Mm-hmm.
so you can't use it to defray the wound you took in Step of Mercy or anything like that, right? So you can't use it to decrease the wound you take from stabbing the cur goggles into your eyeballs
Eyeballs.
to go into the cur. It's got to be in combat, but it's still good. It gives you a lot more. It's better to be KO'd than killed.
Right, right.
When it comes right down to it.
No, I think the same way. Reducing wounds by spending 2 shock is pretty nice. You might be close to being shocked out if, along with any of these, as we discussed, the main limiting factor on all of these paths is your ability to spend and heal shock in rapid succession. Where I'm
Yeah.
spending a lot. I need something to heal me, whether that's a soothe miracle or some potion or some other thing. Taking the like the second, whether it's second
Give me
wind
that second
cards
win card. Yeah.
or whatever different things can really help with this. But that
No,
was the
also, my assumption is you can only do that once. Or would you say if you took 2 wounds, can you spend 4 shock?
not if it's in the same hit,
All right. Okay.
right?
That's how I read it too.
Because it just says to reduce the number of wounds by 1.
Yeah.
So it's not a 2 per wound. So if I took 3 wounds and 6 shock, I could go down to 2 wounds, 8 shock. I couldn't go
Yeah.
down to 0 wounds and a bunch of
12
shock.
shock. Yeah.
um, okay, so then we're moving on to number 6, the step of struggle. Resist those who would oppress others. Spend 1 shock to gain a +2 bonus to an active defense. So, your thoughts on the step of struggle?
That is heavily in the meh level. Active defense rarely being done. If you could spend the shock to give anyone a +2 to active defense, that might be good, but um, for what it is. Now, that said, since you're a super pacifist, you might not be going around fighting and you might be doing active defense more, but even still, +2 is not really all that. Even though 1 shock is pretty cheap, but if it was the kind that you could do after seeing the results,
Mm-hmm.
then it would be much better. And I might even suggest house ruling it to do that because right now I don't really see using it very often.
Yes, the cost is a minimum of 1 shock, but in all of my Torg Eternity playing and game mastering, I've seen active defense used like twice. And it's usually against a very difficult threat. that has a super high toughness and a super high offensive thing, and you just know you can't do anything. And if I,
Yeah.
like you might have one guy that you're like, okay, everybody, divert all your coup de grace, your hero card, divert all the resources to that guy because that's the Storm Knight that can take out this threat. And while he's doing that, we're all going to active defend. In those cases, yes, this any amount to add to an active defense is good, because 55% of the time your active defense is only going to give you a +1 anyway because you roll on the bonus chart. So getting a shock or one shock to get a +2 isn't bad in of itself. The bad part is it's rarely used.
Yeah.
So that's
Unless
what.
you're a pulp deflect
Yeah,
character.
right. um, so let's move on to steps, or yeah, 7, the step of mindfulness. Be aware without interpretation or judgment. Gain the meditation miracle for free. If the priest already has meditation, she may spend 2 shock to increase the range to 5 meters and target up to 6 allies without taking multi-targeting penalties. So basically, you either A, get the meditation miracle, or if you have it, you can spend some shock to increase meditation to affect others, not just yourself. So probably want to look at the meditation to see what that does.
Meditation's a funny one because it's good, but sometimes you just can't do it.
So, meditation is to meditate. The invoker must sit calmly on the floor, become in tune with their body and soul. If the environment is not quiet, they get some negatives to the test. But it says on a success, once in the next 24 hours, the character may declare any test they make favored. The character can only make one test to invoke meditation once every 24 hours. So you can do it once a day, any skill that you do, and then if you spend shock because you bought meditation or you chose meditation, then you can get multiple people in it. And then the good is it's favored and +2, and if it's outstanding, it's favored and +4. So that's pretty potent.
Yeah. Um, I would imagine since faith is the primary skill for the path, you probably already have meditation at this point. And so you're going to keep getting the boosted one where you can get your allies. And it is actually very good. It's very powerful. But sometimes you don't have time to
Right.
do it. It does have a 30-minute invoking time. So I have had characters, not this power specifically, but I think it was one of the Nile Empire mathematician ones, where you've got to spend the time doing it. They don't always get a chance to do
Right.
it, but if sometimes the other players don't want to wait for it,
Mm-hmm.
even though it's very beneficial. However, when it's, hey, we all get this bonus, suddenly it becomes a lot easier to convince them to do that. So I do think this is a good one, and being able to affect your allies is very good,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you invest in this and get an outstanding success. Favored and a +4 is big.
Yes.
Um, the one thing I'm not sure about, and I foolishly moved away from the page, is the +4. The test is favored and gains a plus. So I guess that's even if you don't use the favored, you still get the +4, right?
Right. Right. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So that's just really good. And you only get it on one test, and you do have to say what it is, but like, yeah, it's really good.
Yes, I would agree that step of mindfulness is very nice, especially when you can do it to uh, all the other members of the group, up to 6 allies. So in my
Mhm.
game, one or two Storm Knights might not get it, but in
Right.
most tables are definitely going to get the whole party if they do that. Um, and that is something that you have to think about as a game master. When do the Storm Knights actually have time, and when do they not? And if it's something like, hey guys, let's pause for 30 minutes so that I can do this and everybody agrees, as a game master, you'll need to determine is that time being spent doing that, even if it's possible, is it going to cause consequences later on?
Mhm.
Because maybe the end thing that they come into is they need to stop the bad guys from doing a DSR. And if you spent that time, have them start on step B or something like that. But that will depend on different situations. It's one of those where I don't think there's a hard fast always let him do it or never let him do it.
Right.
It's
It
a
depends on the situation.
depends on the situation. The game masters, that's why you are the game master, and this isn't a video game that you play
Yeah.
that determines whether or not it can be done. But if it can be done, that's nice. It's only 2 shock, and then you get to give everybody a favor plus some bonuses if you did well enough. And this is one that I definitely would be spending resources to give everybody that favored +4 bonus. You can use it on a melee or a range or some mystic skill test, so it could definitely be used well by everybody. It isn't something that's only going to benefit a couple of people that have the right skills. So
And
now,
with a 30-minute cast time, it's outside of combat, so who even
right, who
cares
cares?
about the two shock?
Shock, yeah. Yeah, it's going to be gone unless you make it the unrecoverable shock, but it doesn't say that.
No,
Um, so step of connection. I guess it could determine. There are cases where like you're in cold and you just can't heal shock.
true.
So
Yeah.
certain cases it would. Um, but moving on to the last one, 8, step of connection. The most powerful force in the Cosmverse is the link between conscious beings. During round play, meaning your drama card's active and you're in rounds, the priest may spend 1 shock to make a combined action on an ally's turn without sacrificing her own action. Or she may spend 3 shock to allow all allies within hearing range to support her action with a combined action without consuming their own action. Extra effort is not allowed in this case. So there's 2 different rules, the combined action and the extra effort. This allows everybody to do a combined action without them actually needing to do the
Yeah.
action.
Just be
Um,
there.
so, what are your thoughts of that? 1 to do yourself, or 3 for everybody within
This
range?
is pretty sneaky good. So the one shock one is kind of whatever.
Hmm.
There's two things that you can do with this. Is one is it's basically one shock to give an ally +1,
Right.
right? Or if there was already a combined action being done, this is one shock to let you also do something else.
Hmm.
But you don't get to roll extra effort on what you're doing. But I find in combat often you're not. So we'll see. The 3 shock version though is crazy because it's all allies within hearing range. It doesn't specify storm
Right.
knights or player characters or anything. It's all allies. So anyone on your side, add up how many of them there are, and then check the chart. You're
Hmm.
probably going to be getting like a +4 to whatever you're doing, and that's really good. Um, yeah, it's just getting yourself a good bonus, and they don't have to even do anything. It doesn't use up any of their actions. It doesn't change anything that they're doing. Very good for doing DSRs if
Yes.
you're the one doing it, and then they could still fight. Yeah, so really good. A good capstone skill.
Yes, I agree that it's almost like bends my mind trying to think of how this works, but it's giving good vibes basically. Give you
Yeah,
give you
you can
some
you think like imagine like your allies speaking, like
yeah,
you have those like little I remember in my village when I did this,
right,
like all
right.
these little things as you're doing whatever it is.
But no, it's very good. As you mentioned, the combined action is it's the simple take the total, look at the chart, and that will tell you what the bonus is, and then you use that bonus. But it's very nice in that it's not even like everybody gets a -2 to their action
Yeah.
because they're doing it. So nope, 3 shock and add a bunch of people together and get a cool bonus. So now we are moving to Path of Shadow. The Path of Shadow requires at least 2 adds in stealth and 1 add in unarmed combat, and the path skill is stealth. So you will at least get the first 2 uh, in this path because it's one. Every time you get an add, you get a new ability with this path. So technique 1 is Now You See Me, which is you can make a -1 shock to inflict a -2 concealment penalty to all attacks against you until the start of your next turn. So I spend a shock, and people don't see me as well, and they get a -2. So what are your thoughts on that?
It's pretty good. I mean, -2 is not crazy, but it's only one shock and it's the first power, so it's not going to be the best. But it does notably say concealment penalty, not darkness penalty.
Mm-hmm.
So even if you have dark vision or occultic eyes or something, that will not help.
Mm-hmm.
You'll still take the penalty. So every little bit counts, right?
Right, and it's like similar to what we talked about in the last path for the active defense, except for it's the opposite. It's a -2 to their stuff instead of a +2 to
Mhm.
my defenses, and it's not my full action to do.
Yeah.
So it's just a hey, okay, until the start of my next turn, everybody has a -2 to do things against me. So that's
And it doesn't really specify a timing window, but I would basically say anytime before the guy attacking you makes a roll,
roll.
you could say, if I'm like, okay, these Gospog are going to attack you. Okay, no, I'm going to activate it, but not, hey, they rolled exactly what they need to hit you.
Right, right. Then yeah, it shouldn't be an activation after the effect. Number 2, floating mind. At the beginning of any combat, spend 2 shock to be vulnerable and able to act in a surprise. To be vulnerable and able to act in a surprised round. If not
Right.
surprised, spend 2 shock to be vulnerable and gain a surprise round. So that's the big thing. Normally on a surprise round, you flip over the card, and whichever side is surprised, you ignore that side of the card.
Hmm.
The other side goes, and then you start combat anew. So what this would allow you to do is, if you were surprised, you would be able to act and have whatever situations are on your side happen. But if you're not surprised and you start, then you personally, not the whole party,
Yeah, yeah.
get a surprise round. So, what are your thoughts on floating mine for 2 shock?
This is insane. It is so good. And in fact, like I've said in the past, like Path of Shadows is ridiculous. Like, sure, it doesn't give extreme bonuses and do a lot of damage, but the opportunity for crazy shenanigans is high here. Getting a surprise round is great. 2 shock, no problem. Vulnerable, okay. Normally, if you are surprised, you're flat-footed, so you would be very vulnerable anyways.
Mm-hmm.
So this is 2 shock to basically lose a stack of vulnerable and still get to go if you were surprised.
Right.
So that's even better than it sounds originally when you look at it. And just being able to surprise all the time is great. I mean, you can, depending on what you've got, you can either, as we're going to see, you could probably hide or get like a cheap snipe off or something, or you could get an interaction attack to stymie the other team even before they get to go at all. So there's a lot you can do with it, and it more than makes up for the first one being kind of eh.
Yes, no, this was one that after it was released, one of the players was like, and Game Masters was kind of thinking about it, and he's like, if I do this, can I add it with this and this and this and this? And it's like, yeah, you can. You have to spend the shock, but as you said,
Hmm.
um, and this is one that I see a lot of people don't like. Uh, Probably 7 or 8. That's probably 8, where they're like, oh, it doesn't
Hmm.
fit what they think is like an awesome thing, but when you look at all the other stuff that leads up
Yeah, how it
to it,
works together.
you start adding all of these things up, you can again, this is not the, oh, here's your big bonus dice to your weapons, or you can, shoot and stab the same person and give them both damages and blah blah blah, but it all kind of leads up to some pretty powerful things. So yes, I think floating mind, to be able to act even if you're vulnerable in a surprise round is awesome to begin with, because
Hmm.
everybody else is just going to be standing around doing nothing. And if it's not a surprise, I get the surprise part and the enemies can't act. Very nice. And then full combat happens with everybody. And like you said, you can give all the threats negatives before things even start.
It's also worth mentioning, as you said, in a surprise round, you still draw a card.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're surprised, you don't do it. But if you are able to act, it is still possible that you might go first.
Right.
If the hero's side goes
'Cause-
before the villains, you might still get the jump on them even without surprising them yourself.
right. You're just that fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, your reflexes are that good. So close in number 3. Spend 1 shock to eliminate 2 points of multi-action penalties if a stealth test is one of the actions. So
Ooh,
what are your
yeah.
thoughts of close in?
Great. Almost like mandatory for what you want to do.
Do
You're always going to be doing stealth tests plus something else. So great.
Yes, and for one shock to basically eliminate the multi-action penalty is awesome.
Mhm.
Um, Number 4, Han shot first. Spend 1 shock to add 1 BD to any physical attack damage to surprised targets. Targets. If the hero has brutal ambush, the surprise physical attacks in a surprise round are favored. So, what are your thoughts about Han shot first?
Okay, so you floating mind 2 shock to get a surprise round. You Han shot first to 1 shock. So now you've spent 3 shock, but you get to attack whoever you want. If you have brutal ambush, it's a surprise round, only for physical attack,
Mhm.
mind you. So that's probably stabbing one guy, but you never know. You could come out and be like whipping him Enrique Guzari around or
Right.
something. And then you get an automatic bonus die. Keep in mind, they are flat footed because they're
Mm-hmm.
surprised. So they're already very vulnerable. So you probably already are getting at least a good. So you probably already have another bonus die. At this point, I would probably make a called shot to vital areas as well to go an extra, was it 4 damage? Uh, yeah, the combo here, it's obvious and powerful. And there are a few situations where you won't be able to use it necessarily, but the fact that floating mind lets you do it consistently
Mm-hmm.
is what makes it really good. In a lot of games, it's the difference between older editions of D&D and modern D&D. In older, like second edition, you really had, if you were a thief, you really had to set up a backstab,
Right.
and it took some doing, but then when you did it, it was a big deal. And in modern D&D, it's just backstab, 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 backstab all the time. And this is kind of nice and in the middle now because it's pretty easy to set up, but it does have a cost. but it does do a lot.
Right.
But if you're, it's a big combat, you're probably not going to take out everything, but it's still going to be very impactful. So, yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. It's again very very cool. I think anything that gives you a +1 BD is nice. This, if you would happen to have multiple targets, you could use those. If you have
Mhm.
brutal ambush, then it's favored. That's just the icing on the cake. So, Living Shadow number 5, use stealth against one or more ords as an interaction attack. The ords use find for defense. If the hero succeeds, he may spend 2 shock to increase the success level by 1. So, what are your thoughts on Living Shadow?
Well, as we discussed, being able to use the skill that you're really good at, for other things is good. So this lets you, it says as an interaction attack versus fine. So obviously it's not going to be an approved action, so you're not going to be able to get into that. But your stealth is going to be very high, I guarantee. And most mobs don't really have a high find. I'm noticing you're probably going against an 8 unless it's like a dedicated like sniffer or something. And then the ability to spend 2 shock to increase the success level by 1 is pretty good, but I don't know how often you would actually use that, to be
Mm-hmm.
honest. You're probably going to get a good enough success anyway. And I thought it'd probably be worth going back and just looking at what Brutal Ambush perk does
Right.
in the first with the Han shot first. Just having Brutal Ambush means if you do damage to someone in surprise, when attacking surprise targets, any damage you do does an extra bonus die. So that means you're going to be spending a shock to do plus
2.
2 bonus die to a favored attack. Okay.
Very, very, well, very brutal.
But yeah, Living Shadow is pretty good. It is limited to ords, but what it is good for is cutting those combats duration down.
Right.
Saying, you know what? Let's just get rid of these guys and not worry about it.
Also, since you are using stealth, you could tie it in with close in and do a multi-action and eliminate
Yeah.
the 2 points of multi-action penalties. So you could do the stealth as an interaction attack and something else, which is
Good point.
again is something that look at these numbers, the different techniques, and blend them because that's kind of what they were built to do. So, sentry removal, number 6, technique 6. At the beginning of any combat involving ords, another has to be ords, but you spend 3 shock to remove up to 3 ords from combat without being detected. Ords with a wound limit of 1 or more cannot be targets. Whether removal is lethal or non lethal is at the player's discretion. But yes, this is basically there's some ords there. I'm
Yeah.
spending 3 shock, and 3 of those ords are no longer in the combat. And then you get to determine, did you just knock them out or were you lethal? So, what are your thoughts on sentry removal?
That's a good one. It's just like any in movie, you see them come up behind and get rid of them nice and quiet like. Um, just so you don't have to play through it really. Now it only gets rid of 3, but it is just immediately making the combat easier. And wound limit 1 is no slouch. Like that includes like officers, like veteran shock troopers, things like that. So there are some decent ord characters. Like most have dash wounds, but some have 1. So that gets rid of those as well, and they're often kind of like leader types. Although at this point you do have 6 ads, so you've been playing for a while, so you might not be facing those as much. However, there is the issue that players who would make a character with Path of Shadow tend to be the type who like to run off on their own and go sneaking around and do stuff when the other players aren't around, and often get themselves into situations, and being able to just get rid of 3 Ords without doing anything at the very beginning of a combat, which they surprised in naturally, uh, is very handy for getting themselves out of trouble when they invariably get themselves into trouble as the wannabe ninja.
Right, right. I will point out though, it does say ords with one limit of, sorry, ords with a wound
Oh,
limit of
one or
one or more
more. I thought it was more than one. Okay,
cannot be targets. But still,
my bad.
if it
My bad.
has the dash, you can take them out. And like you said, yes, if you're going down the path of shadow, you or one of your players is going down this path, that's very likely that they will want to sneak off and do their own little thing. Hey, let me scout, let me do this. And it makes it easier for even you as the game master to get everybody back together if they're found out while sneaking around, because they can just spend 3 shock. Um, so technique number 7, fade out. If cover is nearby, spend 1 shock to immediately become hidden. It's considered high concealment, -6 penalty to attack you, basically. On the hero's next attack, you may spend 2 shock to make any targets she attacks flat footed. To me, this is kind of the Batman. Boom,
Yeah,
I'm gone, and now I'm behind you, and you're flat footed as I attack you. So, what are your thoughts on the fade out?
a lot of this is going to come down to how the game master rules things. Like, does this count as hide? Like, does -6 concealment count as hiding? Can you then do a stealth and then they can't find you? Can you then re-engage and activate sentry removal again if you have the shock for all of this? So that would be really the Batman. You just keep
Mm-hmm.
coming in, taking out some sentries, disappearing again. If your GM rules that you're still in combat, they can still see you. They just have the negative, then it's not going to be as powerful. Um, and then the spending 2 shock to make any targets flat-footed is good. Flat-footed is basically just code for very vulnerable. I'm not sure if that's meant to count it as a surprise round or not. It kind of sounds like it is, but it doesn't come right out and say that. So if it counted as a surprise round, it would be insane. Flat-footed is just good.
Mm-hmm.
So
So
yeah, it's going to really depend.
yes, and this is one, even as the same game master, I can see ruling it differently depending on the situation. If you're in a big fight that's ongoing and you're flipping cards for everybody,
Mhm.
then I probably, it would be you're kind of the scene, but you have the negatives to hit. Where if you are that lone guy who went off and got into trouble, then you could, if you took out the 3 with sentry removal, and there were more left, then you could use this to disappear and
Yeah.
then maneuver around, say you maneuver around and then you spend the 2 shock, they're flat footed, and then maybe do, the sentry removal again. And because you're going to be spending 4 and then 3 more to get rid of 6 ords, so you better have 7 shock, kind
Yeah.
of,
Or
kind of,
a
or
other card,
or
second wind.
right, and spend that between them because you can't spend it as that.
True. Yeah.
But still, and that to me makes a good story. When you're able to use the cards and you come up with something. Um, so now we will go to technique number 8, always ready. And that is, once per scene, a hero may place a card directly from her hand into her pool and use it immediately if desired, which is very similar to the situational awareness perk that we're getting into. If the hero has situational awareness, spend 2 shock to draw a card before placing a card, including this one, into the pool. So normally, um, situational awareness would do the same thing. You take one of your cards, you put it to your pool, because normally you have to do your first action first.
Hmm.
This would allow you to, without situational awareness, you do the same thing, or with it, you can spend 2 cards to first draw a card and then to decide which one of uh, all your cards, including the new one, to have in your pool and ready. So, what are your thoughts on always ready?
It's really good. Yeah, it doesn't feel sneaky, like, but it does really help. So it sounds to me like if you have situational awareness, what you're doing is you're spending 2 shock, drawing a card, putting that card into your pool, plus one other card of your choice into your pool, right?
If the hero has spend 2 to draw a card before placing a card, including this one.
Because
Oh,
that's what the including this one would mean, right?
yeah. I'm trying to determine the intent because the other way is you put a card into your pool and that card could include. Yeah, I guess it would be you get 2 cards. You get whatever you
Yeah, so
drew.
that's pretty good. I mean,
Anytime
one's random, but
it and honestly, as an experienced Torg and Torg Eternity player, playing with experienced players, I don't know how many times people forget that they don't have when they start off in combat, they
right.
immediately want to start playing cards, and it's like, no, you have to wait. You have to wait that first round of combat. Situational awareness is nice on its own because it does similar thing. You can put one in there, have it ready.
Yeah.
This 2 shock, I have 2 cards already ready. Yeah, one's random, what's in the deck, but then I get to put whatever I want into it as well. That is nice. That's a nice
Yeah.
way to start thing. And you can include it with all these other things. I get into my surprised round, going all the way back up to floating mind step 2. I'm going to do a surprise. I want to use a card. I'm going to use always ready to get 2 cards, spend a couple of shock, get that. And it just stacks with everything
And
else.
it seems obvious to put like an action or a hero or drama or something down there or
Right.
a or like something for a reroll. But there's also things like mistaken identity, close call. There's a lot of cards that can really change the nature of a combat, especially if it's you in the surprise round,
Mm-hmm.
getting to act where other people haven't seen you yet.
Right.
Um, so there's a lot of cool things you can do there
Yeah,
with that.
it doesn't have to be fighting, as you said. It could
Yeah,
be a mistaken identity. You quickly, you might have been lingering around a secured area, and
yeah.
you suddenly look lost, and they think, you okay, whatever, you go over there, or
So yeah, it only matters in
things.
rounds, but
Hmm.
rounds doesn't necessarily mean combat.
Right.
And the only issue is that it's once per scene.
Yep.
But that said, you're only doing one like big thing per scene usually that matters, and this is when you're going to do it. And you don't have to necessarily do it at the beginning of combat either. It
Hmm.
can happen later in combat once things have been going down and they realize like someone else is like, "Oh, I'm going to play for the moment here because I need to, but that's going to get rid of our glory card." It's like, "Well, why don't you trade it to me?" And I'll
Hmm.
trade you something else. And then if we need the glory, I could just put it in my pool with this. So there's a lot of interactions that can work with it. It does a lot. I think the more experienced you are as a Torg player, the more nifty things you're going to find you can do with this.
Yes, and that is a very good thing to point out. A lot of times people get situational awareness and think that it has to be at the very beginning of the combat or when cards start flipping, and that's not the case. It can be at any time. So if you just gained you put in, do an improved action or something, and now I have an opponent's fails and somebody needs it, and I need to get that into my pool to trade it to somebody, you can use it in those cases as well. So Path to Shadow, I think, is a pretty solid path. It builds on top of each other. A lot of these techniques work very well with each other and take advantage of that. And yes, like
But
everything,
it's pretty specific though.
yes, you will be spending lots of shock, but that is kind of the theme for these paths. So we'll go ahead and wrap that up here. Thank you very much for either watching us or listening to us. Again, you can email us at torgdcd@gmail.com. Send us emails, ask us questions. We'll answer to the best of our ability. We'll comment on your comments, etc. And until next time, we hope you have fun in your own Cosmverse. Bye.